Olix Network 18, Mission Poshan, Bhavishya Roshan.
Hello and welcome to Halftime Report. It's 12 noon. We're halfway through the trading session. I am Reema Tendulkar. With me is Nigel D'Souza. And news coming in, the GST collection for the month of May stands at 94,000 crore rupees, lower than the month of April, which had crossed that 1 lakh crore mark for the first time ever. But it's still higher than the average monthly collection, which is just shy of 90,000 crores. So collections for the month of May at 94,000, higher than the monthly average, but lower compared to what we saw in the prior month, which had crossed that 1 lakh crore mark. But nevertheless, there is a pickup. And it puts us in a fairly good start to FY19 per se. I think for us to meet our, tax revenues for the full year, the GST collections should hit at least close to that 1 lakh crore mark if you do the math thereabouts. So at least inching towards that. We'll try and get more color on what contributed to this month's figure.
Reema, I was reading a Macquarie note and they said given the kind of price increase we've seen in crude prices, the GST collections become very important, and the MSP as well will become very, very important. Because remember, with crude prices going higher, there could be some kind of tinkering in terms of the duties that are currently existing on crude prices. So there could be some loss. So they're going ahead, given that it's an election year. But importantly, the GST number, a number closer towards 1 lakh crore is something that the street is looking out for. Now, I'm interested to understand this 94,000 crores. It's till which date? Is it till the end of the month, or is it, a couple of days short? That as well could add a couple of thousand crores, which will be very, very important as well. So we'll wait by. We'll try to get more clarity on that front, because if it's 94,000, maybe a couple of days short, then you can easily add a couple of thousand more, maybe 2,000 more, then we'll be at around 98,000 odd. So we'll wait by for those details. As of now, in comparison to the average monthly collection, these numbers look good, but we'll have to understand, one, is this for the full month? Is this a couple of days short? And in fact, where exactly did the collections get a boost from? And as I said earlier, it's important, given the current scenario that we have, that in fact Brent crude prices have moved up. So you'll have to keep an eye out on the GST collections very, very closely, and also keep an eye out on inflation.
But the improving trajectory does indicate that the compliance towards tax repayment has improved. And secondly, even the e-way bill was introduced 1st of April. And that was expected to aid in terms of the overall GST collections. So that would have also contributed to the monthly figure. But 94,000 crore rupees. Before we go across to, some reactions, Lata joins in. Lata, quickly, your thoughts?
No, I think it's a very good number. We should remember that the 1 lakh crore for March was always an overstatement. A lot of people produce... Yes, March is the month where exports are the highest in all 12 months. IIP, in terms of the index number, is the highest in all 12 months. Any indicator shows, first of all, it's a 31-day month as well. It's almost a no-holiday month. So there is a fight to finish, and people... Usually the output is highest in March compared to any other month. So, except perhaps some pre-festive restocking months. And therefore that 1 lakh crore was not very convincing that we have, convincingly gone to a higher level of collection. But 94,000 coming in for the month of April, which is of course paid up in May. We know the flows in May. That is an excellent number. It clearly means that we have risen from that average 89,000, 90,000 that we were clocking in the FY18 months. We are definitely going to a higher level. And this is a big relief. I mean, I should see relief in bond markets, because if this is the run rate, you are definitely heading towards a better collection, and the government's GST estimates will actually be met and done better. And just one more purely arithmetic point of view, the nominal GDP has actually slowed considerably. In the last data which came yesterday, it is real GDP plus price level. But since prices have been so much under control, the deflator is low, so nominal GDP has grown by less than 10%. So as a percentage of, when you count tax to GDP ratio, you take nominal GDP. And therefore, this is an even better number. I can't tell you enough how positive this is for the economy.
Okay, let's get in some reactions as well. Prateek Jain of PwC India is here with us on the phone line. Prateek, good afternoon. Your initial thoughts, 94,000. How happy are you with this figure? It's still shy of that 1 lakh crore mark. And would this e-way bill aided in the monthly collections?
Yeah, it would have aided, certainly. I think 94,000 crores is 5% more than the average collection that you got last year, but it's still far lower than what you have projected for this year. If you look at the budget projection for 18-19, your collections need to be more than 1,10,000 crore a month. Okay, so still short, but that means that 5% increment, as Lata said, perhaps the average has moved from 90 to 94, 95,000 crore, which is good news. It also means that the e-way bill has not perhaps resulted in that kind of a move that the government was expecting, because there were estimates by a few of the state ministers that talked about 10 to 15% jump over last month's election.
No, Pratik,
so that has not happened.
Yeah, Pratik, that's extremely well put. It's more like a glass half full, that while we are very happy with 5%, we should be actually aiming for 15% higher. But what's your own sense? This, after all, are early days for the e-way bill. So is the administration not yet in place? The bandwidth is not in place, and therefore things can improve? Or will it be the other way around? Usually, 6 months into a new tax system, people learn to game the system better.
No, I think it's the former. So I think the compliances will improve. You had the interstate e-way bill coming in from April 1st.
Sure.
And now most of the states have come up with intra-state as well. So I think the real impact of this will start coming in now. It has definitely reduced tax evasion to some extent. You can just feel that happening. However, at the same time, there are not enough interceptions, etc., are happening on the vehicles. So that check obviously has not started happening to that extent, and it will start happening now. So I think there will be a visible impact, but I don't think that impact would be as high as 15% jump, right? So this 5% hopefully will move to 7%, 8%. If we get closer to 1 lakh crore on average, I think we are quite safe there.
Though to be fair,
but they need to increase it by another 5,000 crore or so, I guess, on an average.
Okay. No, to be fair, I'm sure the government, while putting its estimates in the budget, has also factored in higher growth for the current year. After all, the government's estimates of real GDP growth is 7.4, and with inflation more likely to be higher rather than lower because of whatever crude and other reasons, we probably will clock a higher tax return on the basis of growth. I mean, we can't still be sure of that. But Pratik, I think we have Timsi Jaipuria joining us.
Yeah. All right. I think Timsi is with us. Timsi, I hope you can hear us. Fill us in with all the details.
Well, as we've just got the initial feelers of what the numbers are. The numbers have crossed 90,000 odd crore rupees. Remember, we had first reported that as on May 29, the collections have crossed 90,000 odd crore rupees, and this is what the initial feelers are telling, that the monthly collection for April month received in May is about 94,000 odd crore rupees. Now this is below the monthly average that government was expecting in this fiscal, about 1 lakh crore rupees. So this is 6,000 crore rupees lesser than the monthly average. But yes, being April, being the first month of the fiscal, where already we had seen March getting in much more than what was the monthly average. In March we had about 1 lakh crore plus revenue. So initially, in the first 2 months of the fiscal, the collections are a little lower. Even in the previous indirect tax regime, this was the trend. And government had indicated upon that May, when it comes to the collections of April, which will be received in May, that is what we've seen today. Okay. They might not be 1 lakh crore rupees per month, and that is what it is. Okay. It is about 94,000 odd crore rupees. Impact of e-way bill is definitely being seen.
Thanks a lot for that, Timsi. I'm hurrying you only because we have an important guest again joining us. Marvin Godino, the GST Council member, is joining us on the phone line. Marvin, what have you made of this 94,000 crore? Definitely a good 5% higher than the average for FY18. But the asking rate, as one of our guests pointed out, is 1,10,000. So we are still 15,000 crore less.
I agree with that. Even the government was looking to a little more higher figures and almost at least touching a lakh. So, but as you know, there are various factors that come into play. You cannot look at only the March figures, because that is the time when there are so many things happening, being the end of financial year. People have to meet targets, and then people pay up towards the end, and that's how the figures were much higher. But even looking at 94,000 crores today, I must say that very safely that the system has stabilized, and as the e-way bill has just been introduced, there has been a very marginal increase, and that is bound to increase further, which will give us good figures henceforth. So you can't expect everything to happen in a month's time and things to move that fast.
All right, Mr. Godino, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for that. Yes, government officials have indicated that the GST revenue collections for April may not reflect the full impact of the e-way bill, as the tax officials across states have been going slow on the enforcement in the first month to allow taxpayers time to familiarize themselves with this new system. So April will not fully reflect the impact of e-way bill. That will come through in the coming few months. But that is the latest on the April GST figure, which is coming at 94,000 crore rupees. I guess there is some upside as the e-way bill continues. By the way, for our own markets, while the Nifty and the Sensex is still down close to about 0.25%, the problem is really in the broader markets. The mid-cap index is down 1.5%. The advanced decline ratio has one stock in the green for nearly 3 stocks in the red. And remember, mid-caps have been underperforming in the last series. The mid-cap index underperformed the benchmarks by close to about 7% and big knocks seen in so many names: PC Jewelers, Reliance Communications, CG Power, GMR Infra. All these stocks had started trade higher. These, of course, are stocks with issues, but now massive selling pressure coming through on
Absolutely.
there.
And keep an eye out on Mindtree. Now, that stock has suddenly moved lower as we speak. That's on the back of the big CNBC TV18 exclusive. Now, sources suggest that Mindtree may see some share sale by a large investor. Nisha's with us in the studio. She's bringing us all those exclusive details. Nisha.
Thanks for that, Nigel. While the buzz has been around for quite some time, in fact, from March this year, when VG Siddharth, who has been an investor in Mindtree from the year 1999, had stepped down as the independent director from the board of Mindtree, this buzz has been around, but we had not managed to confirm it. Now, with sources with direct knowledge, have shared with us that some of the investors have been reached out to by some of the investment bankers who have been really spoken to by VG Siddharth. So what we do gather from sources with direct knowledge that VG Siddharth is exploring the options of monetizing his stake and also the Cafe Coffee Day entity's stake in Mindtree. Remember, all put together come to a little over 20% stake, and he is looking at selling anywhere between 5 to 10% stake at these levels because the current valuations look quite, lucrative at this point for his returns as well. Now, 5 to 10%, depending on the demand coming in from the financial investors. The route could be either blocks or offer for sale, is what we are gathering from sources with direct knowledge. So several financial investors have been reached out, and they are really taking stock of what is the kind of demand that is there for a Mindtree share at these current levels. But of course, we reached out to VG Siddharth. He did not want to comment on this particular development, and Mindtree, on the other hand, has said that they will go with a no comment because it is a third-party investment which they will be really taking care of the financial investment. Now, remember that VG Siddharth is the promoter of Cafe Coffee Day, and he may like to deploy some funds there by making a good amount of returns from his investments in Mindtree. So that's what we are gathering at this point from sources with direct knowledge.
Thank you very much for that. One of the best performing IT stocks this year with a rally of nearly 65%, was trading very close to its record levels for the last many trading sessions. Today, of course, on the back of the supply news, stock has slipped about 1.5% from the top of the day. Get into a break then. On that note, on the other side, ENIL is in focus after posting a weak set of earnings. We get chatting with Prashant.
Welcome back then. We have, the markets that are trading with a bit of a cut as we speak. You have Lupin that suddenly moved for the low point of the day, so keep an eye out on that one. The mid-cap index, that's where the real pain is. GMR, just a short while back, the stock was down only around 2-3%. You take a look at the intraday chart. That stock is now down nearly around 20% as we speak. It went to lower circuit as well. It's an F&O counter. That's why, in fact, we did see a bit of a jump from the lows as well. But just keep an eye out on the screen. But let's move on then. ENIL, well, they posted a mixed set of numbers, a tad bit weakish. The profit after tax reduced by around 16%, while the other income as well did see a bit of a dip. We have with us Mr. Prashant Pandey, the managing director and CEO of the company, with us in the studio. Hi, Prashant. Thanks so much for coming down. Well, if you could give us a few details, what's the current utilization levels? Are you looking at any kind of price hikes? Is there a possibility? I remember last year you did take a price increase, but yet we did see a bit of a degrowth in terms of the top line. Right?
Yeah, so, before we get to the capacity utilization level, let me just tell you about what's going on in the company and what is our game plan and strategy. And this is not something that happened this quarter. It's been going on for the last 4 quarters. And we've been trying to cut on the ad volumes. I mentioned this 4 quarters back to you. And, the biggest consumer complaint, and you will relate to it personally, is that, there are just too many ads on not only radio, but every medium, and radio in particular. So we decided to take the volume cut. We cut volumes by 15%. Remember that it's a very difficult thing in media to cut volumes, but we decided to cut volumes by 15% last year. Fortunately, in the 4th quarter, which is a busy quarter, we have now come to the 13 minutes per hour kind of a average number, which we are happy with. So now that tough task is over. We got a marginal price increase. We got a 3 to 4% price increase during the year. Nothing great, but remember this was in an environment when 3 of the top 4 radio broadcasters actually lost between 6 and 10% pricing. So it's in a relative context that you should see this. I think the business was very strong in the 4th quarter despite the small degrowth we've seen. Our operating cash flow was 70 crores. Our news stations have turned around. Our listenership numbers are absolutely top notch. So I think we are very well poised and we are happy with where we are.
So give us some details. What can we look at for the coming year? I mean, some kind of guidance you can give us if you're well poised, then some numbers will be great.
Well, we don't give guidance, but let me just tell you this, that coming off a low base last year, obviously numbers this year have to be much higher, right? And the real number to look at is, how are you going to do compared to 2 years back? And I have a feeling that if, there is a genuine recovery, as we expect this year, then our numbers should significantly go up beyond the 2-year back mark as well. And don't forget, we've added a lot of new stations. So we expect core business to grow. Typically at 8 to 10% per annum, as we have always said. We expect new stations to grow very quickly. They've turned profitable and they've got traction in the markets. We expect pricing to firm up and we expect volumes to remain stable now.
Hi Prashant, afternoon. You have faced issues with one of your largest client. Could you elaborate a little more on that?
Well, I can elaborate except for naming the client, and this happens typically in the media business. There are standoffs that happen and sometimes those standoffs are strategic. So it's okay. That's
how much did it impact your revenues last year and how much will it impact in the coming years?
Well, I would say that on a full year basis, the impact on revenues was upwards of 5 or 6%. So it was a big impact on us.
And are you still working with the client or?
Yes, our issues are resolved. We are now back with all the clients. We have relationship with all the clients.
What's the realization number that you're talking about?
Well, at the end of the 4th quarter, our revenue our pricing is approximately 11,700 to 12,000 rupees for 10 seconds, which has been pretty much, like I told you, 3% higher than last year.
Okay. Your FY18 margins are much lower than your historical margins. I remember a couple of years back, your margins were upwards of 30%. Now you're talking about the new businesses, your new channels doing well, your core business to recover. What is the expected trajectory on margins? Any numbers?
Yeah, so if you look at the ENIL business, there are 3 components as I look at it. One is the heritage station, 35 stations, and they have seen a recovery in margin in this quarter. So those are on a strong footing, right? Then there were the new stations, and if you remember, they made losses last year because we only launched them about 6 quarters back. So they had a loss last year. They've made a profit this quarter, and from this point on, we see them growing significantly in margins. And the third part of business is our non-radio business. And if you remember, the non-radio business profitability was always a bit of an issue. The good news is that we have managed to grow the profitability of those as well by about 6 percentage points during the year. So all 3 components of the businesses have reported, actually very strong margins, and we expect that to continue in FY19.
All right. Okay, Prashant, thanks so much for coming down. In fact, giving us all those details. All the best for the coming year. Well, on that note, I think we'll slip into a short break. We'll come back and we'll continue the focus on the markets. Stay with us.